Welcome to our presentation on the Fly Delta app. This presentation will be done by Melody Chang and myself, Anastasia Lubretz. The purpose of the Fly Delta app is to make the whole travel experience easier for our current users and any future users. We want to make the process of booking and managing trips quicker. We want to make the process of viewing and tracking flights simpler, and we want to make the process of monitoring and spending your SkyMiles even easier. Currently, the Fly Delta app has the following services. You can plan trips, you can monitor your SkyMiles, and there is the ability to do in-app ticketing, so a user doesn't have to print their ticket before a flight. The app can be used anywhere, from the comfort of your bed at home to the airport. The app can be used during a flight to add services to your existing trip, as well as before to book your trip and after to view your trips you have taken. Users of the Fly Delta app aren't limited to just SkyMiles members. Users can include American Express Delta card holders, and really anyone that flies with Delta that isn't necessarily a SkyMiles member. And of course, SkyMiles members are users of the app, probably the primary users. The base requirements for our Fly Delta app database are for the users to be able to monitor their SkyMiles, as well as book flights and manage trip information.
So this is our conceptual diagram. As you can see that it is huge and complex. So considering the time we have for this project, we have to cut some scope. The yellow out parts are the ones that we think are not necessary for meeting the requirements above. So we've moved them to level 2 in our priority list. We have decided to keep the profile and the flights entity because they are the main feature for the Fly Delta app. In the profile entity, we have the SkyMiles entity. It will be used for monitoring SkyMiles. We also kept the payment entity for paying when booking flights, and the trips entity for managing trip information. Here are the relationships that we have in our diagram. Starting from profile, each profile can have multiple trips, and each trip can be related to only one profile. This means that a person can book multiple flights, but only one person can use the boarding pass. Also, from profile, each user can be watching multiple flights, and each flight can be watched by multiple users. Moving on to trips, each trip will have exactly one flight, but each flight can be in multiple trips, which means that a boarding pass will only be related to one flight, but multiple users can be on the same flight. We have 3 total participation relationships. First and second, each user will have exactly one SkyMiles profile, and each SkyMiles member will only be related to one user. The last one is that there will be exactly one flight related to each trip. For our partial participation relationships, first we have the payment method to profile relation. A user can have 0 or many payment methods depending on if they want to add their cards to the app. Same as the profile to trip. Same as the profile to trips relation. A user can have 0 or more trips. Second, we have the profile to flight relation where each user can be watching 0 or more flights, and each flight can be watched by 0 or more users. We have created six.
And here you'll see the relational diagram. As Melody mentioned before, we have reduced the scope of our database because we can still meet the user requirements and have a more simplified database for the purposes of this project. The basic primary keys are as follows. The profile entity is probably the main entity, and its primary key will be the email. The SkyMiles entity primary key will be the SkyMiles number. The TRIPS entity primary key will be the confirmation number. The payment method entity will have the card number as the primary key, and the flights entity will have the flight number as the primary key. The basic foreign keys are as follows. The main one will be email. Email will connect the SkyMiles entity to the profile, the payment method entity to the profile, as well as the TRIPS entity to the profile. Another foreign key that exists is the flight number. This will connect the TRIPS entity to a specific flight. We have just one complex relationship, and that is the flight scanner. The flight scanner has a composite primary key, which is the combination of the email and the flight number. And the email and the flight number are also foreign keys for the profile and the flights entities, respectively.
We have created 6 tables for this project, which are profile, SkyMiles, payment method, flights, trips, and flight scanner. Our profile table is used to store personal information of user, such as usernames, passwords, legal name, date of birth, address, as well as preference information like seat preference and preferred home airport. The primary key for this table is email. This is the main key for users to be able to access other personal information like SkyMiles and payment methods. Here's an example of what our profile table will look like when populated with data. The SkyMiles table is used to store our SkyMiles and other points such as MQMs, MQS, MQDs, and car spend, which will later on be used for determining member status. The primary key is SkyMiles with email as a foreign key. Here's a sample of what our SkyMiles table will look like when populated with data. Okay. The payment method table is used to store our credit or debit card information that you can use to purchase plane tickets. The primary key is card number with email as a foreign key. Here's a sample of what our payment method table will look like when populated with credit cards. Our flights table stores the information of each flight, such as the date, time, depart location, and arrival time and location, as well as the price for each flight with the flight number as primary key. This table will be used for storing all currently existing flights by Delta. Here's a sample of what our flights table will look like when populated with flights. The trips table is used to store ticket information such as the seat number, seating zone, and if trip protection was purchased with the ticket. We use confirmation number as our primary key. And for foreign keys, we have the email, which is used for tracking the customer that will use the ticket, and the flight number to keep track of which flight the customer wants to be on. Here's a sample of what our trips table will look like when populated with trips. Finally, we have the flight scanner table, which is used to keep track of flights a user is watching. Here's a sample of what our flight scanner table will look like when populated with data. As you can see that v.away1 at cnbc.com is watching 2 flights, which are DL3579 and DL4165.
And lastly, here are some ideas for future implementations. We can add the aircraft feature, which will allow users to see the aircraft when booking a flight. It will also allow the users to see statistics on how well an aircraft has performed. We would also like to add the ability for users to see the seating arrangements of these aircrafts. So that way they can see exactly where they will be seated on a given flight. Another feature we'd like to add is tracking bags and airport mapping, because these features do come in handy and they do make it easier when planning your travels. And lastly, we would like to add the ability to pay with certificates such as gift cards and e-credits, because we believe this would enhance the experience of booking a flight on the Fly Delta app.
Thank you for watching our presentation. We hope you have a great time using the Flight Delta app and fly safe.